Hey, if you like what you see, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that noti bell because it really helps out. The 2005 Fantastic Four movie, directed by Tim Story, might not be the most critically acclaimed superhero film of its time, but it remains a genuinely fun and faithful adaptation of Marvel's first family, especially when measured against the bleak misfire of Fant4stic. Rooted in a more lighthearted, comic book-inspired tone, the 2005 film understood the core dynamic that made the Fantastic Four iconic, the dysfunctional yet loving bond as a family. Unlike many superhero teams, the Fantastic Four don't just fight side by side, they bicker, tease, joke, and ultimately grow together, and this emotional authenticity is one of the 2005 film's strongest assets. While other films try to modernize superhero films by stripping away their whimsy and color, Fantastic Four embraced the classic appeal of the comics, offering audiences a cinematic translation that balanced superpower spectacle with sincere, often humorous human moments. One of the most standout aspects of this adaptation is its casting, which arguably remains the most accurate and entertaining depiction of the team on screen to date. Lauren Grufford brings intelligence and quiet humility to Reed Richards, Jessica Alba captures Sue Storm's strength and warmth, Michael Chiklis delivers a heartfelt, gruff and physically believable Ben Grimm, and Chris Evans, years before becoming Captain America, completely steals the show as Johnny Storm, embodying the Human Torch with charisma, arrogance, and that fiery charm that made him an instant fan favorite. Their chemistry, both in conflict and camaraderie, mirrors the dynamics of the source material to an impressive degree. The film never forgets that the Fantastic Four's superpowers are secondary to their relationships, and this emotional core, tinged with humor and optimism, is what made Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's original comics resonate with readers for generations. The 2005 film even embraces some of the goofier elements of the lore, like Reed's stretchy body jokes or Johnny's over-the-top flame antics, but does so in a way that celebrates the comic book medium rather than mocking it. In stark contrast, 2015's Fant4stic reboot attempted a darker, more grounded reimagining that ultimately lost sight of what made the Fantastic Four family so beloved in the first place. Rather than embracing the bright, vibrant tone and familial energy of the comics, Fant4stic leaned into sterile aesthetics, brooding character arcs, and a plot structure that sapped the characters of their charm and relatability. While the 2005 film had its cheesy moments and early 2000s camp, it wore its heart on its sleeve and proudly delivered a version of the Fantastic Four that was entertaining, accessible, and earnest. In the pantheon of early superhero films, Fantastic Four may not rival the likes of Spider-Man 2 or the later brilliant film The Dark Knight in prestige, but it knew exactly what kind of film it wanted to be: a fun, family-friendly celebration of Marvel's original superhero family. And in doing so, it remains a nostalgic and sincere tribute to the source material, a cinematic love letter that continues to be appreciated by fans who value fun over forced edginess. When examining the modern cinematic history of the Fantastic Four, the 2005 adaptation, stylized as Fant4stic, is often cited as not just a missed opportunity, but a textbook example of how not to handle a beloved superhero property. While it was marketed as a bold, gritty reimagining of Marvel's first family, what unfolded on screen was a muddled, lifeless, and charming slog that abandoned nearly every foundational element that makes the Fantastic Four special. Unlike its 2005 predecessor, which embraced the color, humor, and familial warmth that defined the team, Fant4stic took a joyless detour into body horror and science-gone-wrong nihilism, failing to honor the heart and spirit of the source material in almost every conceivable way. What could have been a thrilling science adventure laced with teamwork and heart was instead a grim, hollow shell of a film, one that barely even functions as a superhero story a decade later. One of the most glaring failures of Fant4stic lies in its characterizations of the beloved team. Reed Richards, played by Miles Teller, is transformed from a brilliant yet emotionally driven leader into a bland, emotionally distant technician. Sue Storm, played by Kate Mara, is sidelined and written without agency, bizarrely absent from the very mission that gives her team their powers. Johnny Storm, played by Michael Jordan, while undoubtedly charismatic, is never given room to develop a meaningful relationship with his teammates, let alone his sister. Worst of all, Ben Grimm, Jamie Bell, the emotional core of the original team, is given so little depth and screen time that his transformation into the Thing feels like a tragic afterthought rather than a pivotal arc. The script never allows these characters to breathe, connect or evolve. There's no banter, no heart, no feeling of family. For a story that should center around a group of flawed yet loving individuals navigating newfound powers and relationships, Fant4stic instead offers 4 emotionally stunted strangers who rarely share the screen and barely resemble a team, let alone a family. And then there's Doctor Doom, or whatever warped version of him this film attempted to present. Victor Von Doom, one of Marvel's most iconic villains, is reduced to a green-screened entity with glowing eyes and an inexplicable motive, stripped of his regal menace, political power, or even basic charisma. Doom in Fant4stic is a hollow digital villain whose final plan involves destroying the world for reasons that are never fully fleshed out. His rushed appearance in the final arc, after nearly an hour of dull setup, feels tacked on and weightless. Add to this a wildly inconsistent tone, a second act that disappears into a black hole of reshoots and studio interference, and a climax that barely lasts 10 minutes. And the result is a movie that doesn't just misunderstand the Fantastic Four, it actively rejects everything that made the original team in the 2005 film work. It's not a reimagining, it's a dismantling. In a cinematic age where superhero stories are thriving due to a respect of their roots and of their characters, Fant4stic stands out as a cautionary tale, a soulless, studio-tampered disaster that forgot that superheroes, especially the Fantastic Four, are supposed to inspire awe, warmth, and wonder. One of the most enduring strengths of the 2005 Fantastic Four film lies in its casting, which to this day remains the most entertaining and accurate live-action depiction of the team. Each actor brought not only the necessary physical presence, but also the emotional depth and charm that made their original comic book counterparts so beloved. Lone Grufford, as Reed Richards, exuded a balance of quiet brilliance and absent-minded charm, a man whose brain often raced faster than his social awareness, yet whose intentions were always rooted in protecting his team. Michael Chiklis, as Ben Grimm, was the perfect embodiment of pathos and power, delivering every line with the rough-edged heartache of a man burdened by his transformation. And of course, Chris Evans, long before he wielded Captain America's shield, captured Johnny Storm's cocky, brash, yet lovable energy in a way that felt pulled directly from the pages of a 1960s Fantastic Four comic. This cast understood that the Fantastic Four weren't meant to be distant godlike figures, they were flawed, quirky, human, and that humanity is what made them so engaging on screen. Yet among this strong ensemble, one performance continues to stand out, at least to me, with a sense of personal resonance and timeless beauty: Jessica Alba's portrayal of Sue Storm. Though some critics at the time dismissed her casting as more of a studio choice than a fan-driven one, Alba defied expectations by grounding the role with sincerity, emotional nuance, and grace. Her version of Sue was intelligent, empathetic, and quietly powerful, someone who could hold her own in a room full of larger-than-life personalities without ever needing to shout. While the film may have indulged in a few early 2000s tropes, including the infamous power malfunction scene in the middle of the bridge, Alba's Sue was never reduced to a damsel or token female presence. Instead, she served as the emotional center of the team, mediating between Reed's absent-minded genius and Johnny's recklessness, while also sharing a complicated, tender history with Ben. She played the role with a kind of emotional maturity that made her stand out, a woman navigating the strange world of superpowers and being a celebrity without ever losing her own sense of self. Now, with a new Fantastic Four reboot on the horizon and an entirely fresh cast set to reintroduce the team to a new generation, there's understandable excitement in the air. Fans are hopeful that the upcoming film will finally strike the perfect balance between spectacle, family drama, and cosmic adventure. But no matter how promising the new iteration may look, for many fans, myself included, Jessica Alba will always be the Sue Storm. She may not have had the benefit of a perfectly written script or a billion-dollar cinematic universe to support her, but what she brought to the role was something that transcends production budgets or critical consensus: authenticity. She truly felt like Sue Storm, not just in her looks or mannerisms, but in the quiet strength she carried in every scene. In a time when superhero films were still finding their footing, Jessica Alba helped define what a female superhero could be. Not just eye candy, not just a sidekick, but a fully realized member of a team and family, and a force of compassion and power in her own right. What makes the 2005 Fantastic Four film stand out, especially in hindsight, is its unapologetic embrace of comic book camp and colourful storytelling. At a time when many superhero adaptations were beginning to skew darker and more grounded, as seen with Batman Begins that same year, Fantastic Four confidently leaned into the lighthearted tone and larger-than-life personalities of the beloved family. The movie never pretended to be a gritty reinvention or a philosophical deconstruction of heroism. Instead, it chose to revel in the joy and absurdity of its source material. Stretchy limbs, spontaneous combustion, invisible force fields, and a walking rockman. These were treated not with disdain or embarrassment, but with a sense of genuine curiosity and fun. It's this commitment to capturing the tone of the comics, especially the early Stan Lee Jack Kirby era, that gives the film its lasting charm. It wasn't trying to be X-Men or The Dark Knight, it was trying to be Fantastic Four, and that made all the difference. The film's set pieces reflect this ethos as well. Flashy, playful, and emotionally grounded in the family dynamic. Whether it's the team learning to use their powers in the Baxter Building or bickering on the streets of New York mid-battle, the action is always infused with character-driven humor and stakes. The Brooklyn Bridge sequence, for example, isn't just a random action beat, it's a moment of crisis that forces the team to work together in public for the first time, laying the foundation for their evolution as heroes. The visuals, though limited by mid-2000s CGI, still hold a certain nostalgic charm to them. The Thing's practical suit in particular remains one of the highlights, giving Ben Grimm a tactile real-world presence that no digital model could replicate. There's a sincerity to how the film treats its characters and their strange new reality, not mocking their powers or turning them into tragic metaphors, but portraying them as people simply trying to adjust, bicker, love, and overcome challenges together. Even the villainous presence of Dr. Doom, though not without his own flaws, fits snugly within the campy comic book aesthetic the film was trying to achieve. Julian McMahon's portrayal of Victor Von Doom is less Latvian dictator and more corporate egomaniac, but it works within the film's early 2000s tone. Clad in a flashy metal suit with bolts of electricity and scenery chewing arrogance, this version of Doom brings a theatrical menace that, while not accurate to the comics, at least feels entertaining and stylistically consistent within the rest of the film. In an age where villains were often hyper-serious or tragically misunderstood, this Doom felt delightfully evil for the sake of it, the kind of antagonist who relished power and revenge pure and simple. Much like the rest of the movie, he's not meant to be subtle or overtly complex, he's meant to be fun, and ultimately, that's the key to why the 2005 Fantastic Four film remains beloved by many, myself included. It understood that superhero stories, at their best, are bold, imaginative, and sometimes downright goofy, and that's not a weakness, it's a strength. Looking back, the 2005 Fantastic Four film occupies a unique and nostalgic space in the ever-expanding world of superhero cinema. It may not have been the most critically acclaimed, nor did it redefine the genre the way some of its contemporaries did, but what it did accomplish was something that still matters. It captured the spirit of the source material. It celebrated the lighthearted science fiction adventure tone that made the Fantastic Four such a cornerstone of Marvel's universe in the first place. Rather than run away from the inherent weirdness of its characters, a man who can stretch like rubber, a woman who turns invisible, a human torch, and a giant rockman with a heart of gold, the film embraced those quirks and leaned into them with open arms. It didn't try to be ashamed of its comic book roots or bury them under layers of brooding and shadows. Instead, it wore them proudly, like the bright blue suits the team ultimately dons. That sense of unabashed fun, family dynamic, and colourful storytelling is precisely what helped make this film such an enduring, if underrated, entry in the 2000s superhero genre. More importantly, the movie gave fans a version of the Fantastic Four that felt approachable, charming, and faithful. It didn't try to reinvent the wheel, nor did it attempt to shatter expectations by twisting the characters into something they weren't. It simply wanted to bring Marvel's first and most famous family to life in a way that honored their comic book history and made them relatable to a new generation. The casting was pitch perfect for the time, with actors who had genuine chemistry and brought warmth, humor, and heart to their roles. Jessica Alba especially gave a performance as Sue Storm that continues to resonate, especially with me, years later. Not because it was the loudest or most flashy, but because it felt grounded, empathetic, and full of humanity. Her Sue Storm felt like a real person caught in an extraordinary situation trying to hold her team together while asserting her own strength and compassion. For many, including myself, she'll always be the definitive on-screen invisible woman, the one who brought class and clarity to the chaos around her. And now, with Marvel Studios preparing to debut their own version of the Fantastic Four in the ever-growing and muddled Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's natural to feel both anticipation and hesitation. The bar is higher than ever, and fans are hungry for a version that finally gives Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben their rightful place alongside the new Avengers and the Avengers. But even as we look ahead, it's important not to forget the version that paved the way, the one that may have had its flaws, but also had its heart in exactly the right place. The 2005 Fantastic Four film wasn't just fun, it was fantastic in the way that mattered most. It made us care about this strange little family of misfits, explorers and heroes. And who knows, maybe this new MCU adaptation of Marvel's first and most famous family might just be all that more fantastic.